Professor Raghunathan, are you able to hear us?
You have to
Sir, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah.
All right, then our next.
We'll wait for
Sure.
the session is up.
Okay. We wait for the madam?
You just because he doesn't display it. Professor Raghunathan, can you move your camera a little so that we can see your face? Yes, that's perfect. That is better. And we'll wait for a few more minutes because there is a third session. The people from audience from that session has to come.
Okay.
So all top is being seen. Just lower it a little bit. Yeah, lower it right. Yeah, exactly. Some of it. Yeah, then you get a picture. Yes. I think better is lost. So,
So it only has a certain.
Can you take it back? Take it back.
It has a link to
Professor Raghunathan?
Yes, please.
You have two tabs open. One is saying BRICS. Do you mean to show that? Oh,
Sorry. I tried to, I put something on the, to share the screen with. Can you see the slides I have put up? No?
you have
The
to.
slide I have put up?
No, I think you have put the other PDF that you had once sent. Screen is being shared, so we can see it, but you have to choose the other. The BRICS 2021 is what you have to choose on your computer.
No, sorry. I got it wrong here. My preparing the slide, I forgot to change this, the bottom.
Oh,
Sorry about that. It is meant for BRICS, yes. No, I was supposed to give a similar talk at Allahabad, and I wrote it for Allahabad, but then it turned out I was not giving the talk, but I forgot to change this. This should be December 7th or for BRICS.
sir, there is a adjacent tab which says BRICS.
Everybody can see can everyone see the slide? Vijay, can people see the slides?
We can see the slide.
Okay, so
Professor Raghunathan, what I
Yes.
want to ask is, see, what you have shared, adjacent to that tab, there is another one which says BRICS 2021. So we can clearly see the slides. You have two tabs open. I have files open. The two files open, and then one is BRICS actually. It says BRICS.
There is our booklet.
Yeah, it's the
I
information.
don't see that. I don't see that at all.
Fine. Okay, fine. Everything is okay.
Yeah. Again, go to the full screen.
Can you go to full screen?
That he have.
Okay, one moment.
No. Go to the view. You can go to the view. Under view, there's a drop down.
I don't see view this. Wait a minute. No, I don't see the.
File, edit, view. Sir, you can also press Control and L.
Let's see. You want me to make the screen bigger?
No, if you can press Control L.
It's okay now?
Yes, yeah.
Can get really bigger. Still, yes, you go to the. You don't have these borders. Right? You do not have these borders.
He has to go to.
Sir, can you see view on top? File, edit, view. On the left corner, top. If you click on view,
What?
if you can click on view, right? Yeah, just adjacent to
View.
that. To
Okay.
file,
You want me
edit.
to make it bigger?
No, not there. You know, view, just drop down, click on that. Yeah, you say, if you come down, full screen mode,
Sorry, understand.
come down, full screen
I was in
mode.
view and now I move to.
No, go back to view, come down, no, just bring down the cursor. No, not there, adjacent one, view. Yeah, come down, still further down, full screen mode. You see full screen mode below? Still further down, sir. Yeah, come down, some more. Yeah, there.
Okay.
No. I think it's okay. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I have something which is covering the screen for me. So I don't see everything on the screen, on my screen. This. One second, let me see
It's fine.
if I can move this further.
So for us, maybe.
That's better now. Okay, yeah. I think I'm ready now. Sorry about this. Should have been BRICS. Yeah. Should I start?
So 1 second. First of all, welcome everyone. This is our first public lecture, and the speaker is Professor M.S. Raghunathan. And the chair for today's session is Professor J.M. Murthy. So can you please come on stage and introduce the speaker?
You want me to hear or?
The camera, can you face the camera?
I was told I could be sitting and doing that.
Anything is fine, so whatever works for you.
I think this is okay.
Yeah.
I'm not captured, that's okay. All right. I am truly humbled to introduce the scientist of the stature of Professor M.S. Raghunathan. I'm not a mathematician, I'm a chemist by profession, but yet he's such a well-known person, and I'm sure in India, everyone is aware of who Professor M.S. Raghunathan is. It is for the benefit of the students and the audience from other countries. Allow me to run through his detail. Right, this for the benefit of the people that have not known Professor M.S. Raghunathan. Madhabusi Santanam Raghunathan, his full name, was born in 1941 in Anantapur, Andhra Pradesh, presently. He had his early education in Chennai, went to Bangalore for a reason that is quite funny actually, to pursue his 10+2 and returned back to Chennai again for a BA honors in mathematics, and subsequently moved to Mumbai to pursue, of course, his PhD with Professor M.S. Chandrasekharan. He worked on deformations of linear connections and Riemannian matrix. He was awarded the degree, PhD degree, by the University of Bombay in 1966. And at this time, I was only 1 year infant. That is the difference in terms of the stature that Professor M.S. Raghunathan in fact holds. It's really stallion. Right? He has contributed tremendously in the so-called rigidity and arithmeticity problems, which I understand are very important from the point of view of number theory. One of his conjectures developed in the mid-1970s has come to be called as Raghunathan conjecture, which I believe is very influential in the study of the dynamics of class of flows and their applications in various areas. He holds the unique distinction of having been called to give a talk in International Congress of Mathematicians, unique distinction, at the age of 29. That's really unique, right? He had his PhD by the age of 24. So obviously, I think for his contributions, he was awarded several prizes, and the Chandrasekharan Prize, of course, he was awarded in the year 1977. Subsequently, another one, Srinivasa Ramanujan Medal of the Indian National Science Academy in 1991. And today it is how it is called as the Developing World Academy of Sciences. Prize is different from fellowship, and he is a recipient of the both. And in 2000, of course, Indian he was elected as the fellow of Lion Society. That is really unique, joining the ranks of Srinivasa Ramanujan. And Indian government too woke up, and he was, conferred with Padma Shri, the award, and subsequently in 2012, Padma Vibhushan, supposedly the third highest civilian award given by Indian government. Well, Professor Raghunathan is considered as one of the best mathematical intellects, I would say, in India, by the greats like Professor S. Chandrasekharan, Nobel laureate in physics. I understand that his work is characterized by uncommon ingenuity on one hand, and the dexterous use of techniques from a variety of areas in mathematics on the other hand. It is described to embody the rare combination of a modern mathematician with a drive to prove new results and a scholar in a classical mold, interested in imbibing and propagating ideas. I think this is really nice. He never misses an opportunity to emphasize that good research, I think, is for the benefit of everybody. I think more so for my theoretical skill, which I strongly believe in. Good research can only emerge in a milieu of scholarship, and that unless scholarship is promoted sufficiently, mathematics in the country would face the danger of degeneration. Sir, I must say it holds true for every discipline, but not necessarily limited to mathematics. I think chemistry that I practice, I believe the scholarship is absolutely indispensable. He has spearheaded NBHM, National Board for Higher Mathematics, in our country. Of course, being a chairman, he promoted the practice of mathematics very fervently. And I was reading about him. Seemingly, he used to be called a bacha, it seems, when he was a research assistant at the age of 19. What a meteoric rise it is, that from being a bacha, he has gone on to become a very eminent mathematician in the country. I think I better not more than that. Sir, it is indeed a veritable joy for me to invite you to give a talk in our, Isatharundapuram and in the BRICS conference. Please.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. Let me also thank the organizers for asking me to give this talk. However, I must say that this is a job which is not so easy to do properly, and I must offer some excuses right away. I've taken on and varied, and no one person can do justice to it. Secondly, there are limitations set by my knowledge. I will speak almost exclusively about what's been going on in this country in the 20th century in pure mathematics. Applied mathematics, including computer science and statistics, personal taste and bias are inescapable to speak on this topic. There will be some names and mathematics which will not figure in my talk, but others will have a right to. And I'll talk about mathematics that has had, in my perception, an international practice. I'm not to find a place in my talk will be acknowledged as deserving by all. I hope that you will find the talk interesting despite these shortcomings. I will talk at length about mathematicians who embarked on their careers before independence, that is before 1947, and say very little about those who came on the scene later. This is partly because, once the internet became internationally available, people learn about mathematics in this country as much as what is going on elsewhere through the internet. And so the later generations are probably better known to the outside world. So that's one of the reasons why I'm going to confine myself to talk about those mathematicians.
I'm very sorry to interrupt. So your connection bandwidth is not that great. So it would be really great if you could switch off your video.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Now it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it has been a bit better right now.
Okay. Information about mathematics over the last 25 years is readily available on the internet. So that's one reason why I omit mention of mathematics done almost the last 50 years. Much of the mathematics done. Those I'm going to speak on at length, many are not known to the younger generation even within India. Yet they have contributed very significantly to mathematics in the world at large. Okay, let me start with this. As you all know, intellectual activity in India, at least Indians would know it, had taken a back seat since the 12th century, thanks to the political turmoil in the subcontinent. The relative stability under the Mughals did not change the situation very much. It is after the consolidation of the British power in India that there was a revival marked by the so-called Bengal Renaissance of the 19th century. At first, the Renaissance activity was limited to the humanities, but towards the end of the century, it spread to the sciences as well. Already in the first decade of the 20th century, the international mathematical community started taking notice of mathematics emanating from India. One of the earliest Indian mathematicians who made a good impression on Western scientists was N Prasad. who was born in 1876. He was very much a product of the Indian education system, having got a master's degree as well as a DSc degree from Allahabad. He took on a lecturership at Muir College in Allahabad after his DSc. In 1899, however, he went to Cambridge, where he submitted a paper titled On the Constitution of Matter and Analytical Theories of Heat for the Adams Prize. He did not get the prize. However, the paper was solicited by no less a person than Felix Klein, famous German mathematician, whom he met in Göttingen, where he spent some time before returning to India in 1904. And Felix Klein had solicited the paper for the Göttingen Abhandlungen. That is a picture of N Prasad. After his return from Europe, he worked mostly at Calcutta University, with a few years break spent at Banaras University. In Göttingen, he also made contact with David Hilbert, Arnold Sommerfeld, and George Cantor. He worked in both pure and applied mathematics, authored 2 mathematical treatises, and also a book of short biographies of great mathematicians of the 19th century, well before the appearance of the famous book Men of Mathematics by E.T. Bell. And the book appeared both in Hindi and English versions. And some of my friends who read the Hindi version, I have not read either. Some of my friends who have read the Hindi version tell me it's a very nice biographical sketch of various people. Andre Weil, in a lecture on the then state of Indian mathematics given in 1935 in Moscow, rather uncharitably talks of him as a man not entirely without talent. Acknowledge that he had talent in any case. Now, that was N Prasad, who was probably the first Indian mathematician to have an international impact in the early 20th century. Now, well, curiously, not many British mathematicians came to India. Willam Henry Young was a first-rate British mathematician, and he was appointed as the first Hardinge Professor of Mathematics at Calcutta University in 1913. He held the post for 4 years. I'm talking about mathematics in India, so he did some work while for those 4 years in India. That is why he not the recognition he deserved in those days. However, he had little or no influence on mathematics in India beyond what he did himself. His own work, of course, he published, and that emanated from India. To that extent, is you can call it Indian mathematics. But he had no long-term influence on mathematics in India. Now, the next name is Samadas Mukhopadhyaya. In 1909, Samadas Mukhopadhyaya of Calcutta University proved the following theorem, one of the earliest results in global differential geometry. I'm stating the theorem. Strictly convex simple closed curve, the plane, other than a circle, must have at least 4 vertices. That is, at least 4 points where the curvature has a local maximum or a local minimum. That is Mukhopadhyaya's theorem. It's known as Mukhopadhyayas 4-vertex theorem. This theorem attracted immediate international attention. In 1912, Adolf Kneser proved it for all simple closed curves in the plane, not just the strictly convex one, which is what Mukhopadhyaya had done. There has been sustained interest in the theorem over years, people refining it and generalizing it, but most of this work was done outside India by others, but not by Indians. There was an in fact, the sustained interest is indicated by the fact that there was an international celebration for the centenarial publication of the theorem, which is indicative of the considerable interest it evoked. As I said, it's one of the first global results in differential geometry. There is some Samadas Mukhopadhyaya for you. The 4-vertex theorem is proved in Mukhopadhyaya. New methods in geometry of plane are brought in the Calcutta Mathematical Society 1. In fact, you'll see that most of the mathematicians are more publish their papers only in Indian journals. They did publish a few things outside, but most of them appeared largely in the Indian journals. One of the well-known journals, Indian journal, was the Bulletin of the Calcutta Mathematical Society. The other is the Journal of the Indian Mathematical Societies. Jacques Hadamard took an interest in Ramdas Mukhopadhyay's work in geometry and in geometry in general corresponded with him. When Mukhopadhyay visited Paris in 1933, Hadamard invited him to give a lecture. Willam Blaschke's book on geometry some of Mukhopadhyay's work. But this was a time when big mathematical progress in the continent was leaving Britain way behind. Ramdas Mukhopadhyay was born at Haripal, Hooghly district in West Bengal, India. He graduated from Hooghly College, received his MA degree, PhD from Calcutta University in 1910. Mukhopadhyay was appointed by Asutosh Mukherjee, Vice Chancellor, as Professor of Mathematics in Raja Bazar Science College, University of Calcutta. The universities in those days, the three major universities in Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, they did not have departments of various subjects of their own. All the affiliated colleges. Mukhopadhyay was the president of the Calcutta Mathematics Society from 1932 till his death in 1937. Asutosh Mukherjee, the founder of the society, was a competent mathematician himself, but perhaps not quite the same league as Ramdas Mukhopadhyay. But there were other dimensions to the man entitling him to greatness. That is Asutosh Mukherjee. Under Asutosh Mukherjee's stewardship, Calcutta University became a great center of learning in diverse areas, in particular mathematics. The greatest figure of 20th century mathematics from India was, of course, the legendary Srinivasa Ramanujan. Ramanujan's work was mainly in three topics, all of number theoretic interest. It may be noted that the three I spoke about so far did not explore number theory at all. Perhaps Ramanujan's most enduring contributions are those connected with modular forms. His conjecture on the Ramanujan co-function was much sought after till it was proved as late as 1974 by Deline. His circle method, developed in collaboration with Hardy in connection with the study of the partition functions, continues to be employed by mathematicians through new beautiful theorems. Apart from his published papers, his notebooks, published posthumously, contain a wealth of beautiful formulae and identities without proof. They have been a source of great inspiration, especially for people working on special functions. Everyone knows the story of his life, so I will not go very much into it. It has a tragic end. It's a fairy tale with no witches. The education system failed to recognize his genius early, it's true, but that cannot be attributed to its colonial character. After all, Galvay suffered a worse fate in the French system. I do not think there's a foolproof method for identifying maverick geniuses to this day. To this day, the working of Ramanujan's mind remains an enigma. There you see a photograph of Ramanujan and Godfrey Harold Hardy, who was his collaborator and in some ways a mentor. Robert Cunningham's The Man Who even if it understands on some nuances of his own Brahmin myth to witness. He was born in Madras in 1893 into relative opulence, and after a brilliant academic career of the normal kind through school and college, went to Cambridge in 1914 and became a student of Hardy's. As a student, he won the coveted Smith's Prize. He worked on summability, one of Hardy's favorite subjects. Summability is a study of devices to make sense of sums of infinite series which are not convergent. And it is applied especially to Fourier series. For example, a famous theorem asserts that sigma a n x is the Fourier series of a continuous function fx, and sqx is the sum to q terms of a n x. Then this should be q equals 0. Yeah, this is n equals 0. Okay. Then the sequence 1 over n summation q equals 0 to n s minus qx don't know why the minus 2x there. Sorry, there's no qx there. This converges to fx as q tends to infinity. This should be n tends to infinity. Sorry, I got this mixed up. Anyway, it's a theorem that any continuous function has a Siemens-Fourier Fourier series. One other such device is the Abel summability. The series sigma n is summable. Abel summable if sigma n r power n converges absolutely for 0 from r less than 1, we will limit fr and limit fr exists. I mean, I'm just mentioning this. Maybe I'm not familiar with this old time race. Anada Rau returned to Madras after completing his studies in 1919 and was immediately appointed as professor of mathematics in Presidency College. He was an outstanding analyst who worked a great deal on summability, an area in which Hardy was the leading figure. The theorem named after Anada Rau figures in Hardy's book, Divergences. He was from great respect and affection by his students, many of whom went on to become fine mathematicians. Some of them leaders on the evening, and I'll speak about them as well. Even if all the students began with work in summability, they branched off into other areas, and that speaks a lot about Anada Rau as a teacher. From service in 1948, then 1955, remained Mukhopadhyayas long after that, in 1966. Anada Rau got to Ramanujan in Cambridge, and he has this to say about his illustrious colleague. In his nature, he was simple, entirely free from affectation, with no trace whatever of his being self-conscious of his abilities. So, Anada Rau was a contemporary Ramanujan. Another figure of importance from those days in the Indian mathematics was R. Vaidyanathaswamy, also from Madras. He too went to England, not Cambridge though, to work with some British mathematicians, whether in the University of Madras. I should like to emphasize that in this case, that is from Vaidyanathaswamy's case, as well as that of Anada Rau, their career decisions were taken well before Ramanujan's story broke out. Their mathematical interests were far removed from those of Ramanujan. Vaidyanathaswamy is among the earliest to mention areas as symbolic logic, lattice topology that were not British favorites of his time. After the return from England in 1925, he spent a year in Benares and joined Anada Rau in Madras. The two men joined forces to create a lively and congenial atmosphere of mathematics for students in Madras. Madras University administration, in its infinite wisdom, kept him as a reader till just before his retirement in 1952. After retirement, he worked for a few years at the Indian Statistical Institute, Calcutta, and later at C. Venkateswara University, Tirupati. Swami seems to have been cast in the more traditional Indian scholarship. He was a keen student of Arabic and studied Vedic texts in depth, offering his own interpretations. Number theory, Ramanujan's area of interest, naturally had many adherents in the country after Ramanujan. But work that had a truly great impact came only in the mid-30s, and it came from S.S. Pillai. Pillai was born in 1901 in the Tirunelveli district of Tamil Nadu. His mother died within a year of his birth, and he was brought up by his father with the help of an age relative. He made good progress at school, but tragedy struck again. His father passed away when he was in the final year at school. His talents had earned him the lasting affection for a teacher, Shastriyar, who stepped in to help him continue his education. Pillai also secured scholarships and completed the BA degree at Maharaja's College, Trivandrum, and moved to Madras, where he became a student of Anada Rau, for whom he cherished lifelong affection and respect. He soon proved himself to be a first-rate researcher, and after taking his PhD at Madras, took up his first job at Annamalai University. Later moved to Trivandrum, then again to Calcutta, and finally back to Madras University. It is in the 30s at Annamalai University that Pillai's talents were in full bloom, and he cracked a problem that was engaging some of the finest minds. David Hilbert had shown that for every integer k greater than 0, there is a smallest integer gk greater than 0, such that every positive integer can be expressed as a sum of gk kth powers. Pillai's work centered on the exact determination of GK. He achieved the complete determination of for K greater than 7, a superb achievement by any reckoning. He went on a little later to tackle the even more difficult case K equals 6. Pillai published great papers in the Indian journals, which did not have a wide circulation. Nevertheless, recognition did come eventually for these outstanding contributions, but tragedy struck once more before he could savor his success. On August 31st, 1950, Pillai died in an air crash over Egypt. He was on his way to the US, his first trip abroad, to spend a year at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, where he had been invited. The news was received with great shock by the mathematicians assembled at Harvard, where Pillai was to participate in the International Congress of Mathematicians before going to Princeton. There is S.S. Pillai, Subbaiah Sivasankar Narayana Pillai, to give the full name. Pillai's work on the varying problem, the determination of GK, is a piece that has given him a permanent place in the history of mathematics. Raj Chandra Bose is the next mathematician I'm going to speak about. I moved from Chennai to Calcutta. I may add here, in the pre-independence period, the two centers played a very key role in developing good mathematics. One was Calcutta, which began with a lead in time. Then the other was Chennai. And at the time of independence, both these universities had produced quite a few outstanding mathematicians. There are other centers too, as I already mentioned. Sorry. Ganesh Prasad was from Allahabad. Raj Chandra Bose was born in 1901 in Hoshangabad. He lost both his parents in quick succession when he was still in his teens. Despite difficult circumstances, Bose secured first class in the master's examination in both pure and applied mathematics in 1925, and in 1927 had embarked on research in differential geometry at the Raja Bazar Science College under the guidance of Shamadas Mukhopadhyayas. In December 1932, he moved to the Indian Statistical Institute when P.C. Mahalanobis offered him a job there. In December 32, he offered a job there. Mahalanobis persuaded him to move to statistics. In 1938-39, Ronald Fisher visited ISI and talked about the design of experiments. Bose had the great idea of using the theory of finite fields and finite geometry to solve problems in design. In 1947, Bose, he cut his teeth in Calcutta and already done work of great significance in Calcutta. In 1947, however, Bose went to the United States as visiting professor at Columbia University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The development of mathematical design during his stay at the Indian Statistical Institute is one of Bose's great achievements. You see Raj Chandra Bose on the left, and this is Harishchandra Second, who collaborated with Bose to settle in the negative a conjecture of long-standing conjecture of Euler on Latin squares. In 1949, Bose took up a permanent position at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. In the years at Chapel Hill, Bose made important discoveries in coding theory with D.K. Roy Choudhury and constructed with S.S. Srikandi and E.T. Parker Greco-Latin squares of size 10, a counterexample to Euler's conjecture that no Greco-Latin squares of size 4k+2 exist. On his retirement in 1971, he accepted a chair at Colorado State University, Fort Collins, from which he retired in 1980. Bose died in Colorado in 1987. So here is unlike the earlier people I spoke about, Bose spent a greater part of his life in the United States. Though very significant work of his had already appeared when he was in India. In the early decades of the 20th century, British mathematics held sway over us. It did, of course, produce some beneficial results. However, in that period, the most exciting developments in mathematics were taking place in Paris and Göttingen, not Cambridge. These seem to have had no great impact on the Indian scene. Though, as I mentioned, Vaidyanathaswamy did pick up some of those areas to work on. Summability, an area of interest to Hardy, was pursued by many Indians, Anada Rau and many of his students making substantial contributions. But the subject continued to be pursued by many Indians long after it had ceased to offer exciting challenges. So there is a grain of truth in the impish comment. Hardly spoilt many Indian mathematicians, but Ramanujan was much too great despite. That brings me to the author of that statement, André Weil. André Weil, of course, was a Frenchman, but he spent 2 years in India and showed some mathematics emanating from India emanated from André Weil in those 2 years. Let me quickly tell you a few things about Weil. André Weil is, of course, one of the greatest mathematicians of the 20th century. He was a colorful personality, not averse to using his powerful sense of humor to cause discomfiture. He spent 2 years, 1930 to 32, in India as a professor and head of the department of mathematics at Aligarh Muslim University. He tells the amusing story of how this came about in his autobiography. Syed Ras Masood, then education minister to the Nizam of Hyderabad, was vacationing in Europe when he was appointed vice chancellor of AMU, founded by his grandfather, Syed Ahmad Khan. He wanted to recruit a suitable person for a chair in French culture to the Aligarh Muslim University. He felt a chair in French culture should be there in every good university. He sought the help of the famous French Indologist Sylvain Levy, who summoned Weil to their presence. Weil, who had just completed his doctorate in mathematics at the famed École Normale Supérieure in Paris, was in touch with Levy. He had been keenly following a course on Kalidasa's Meghadutam by Levy at the Sorbonne. The interview was brief. Masood offered the chair on the spot and Weil accepted it. But 6 months later, when the formal offer came to the chair in mathematics, not French culture, Weil says that he never found out when Masood came to know about his mathematical credentials. Weil arrived in Aligarh armed with powers to hire and fire faculty. He was all of 23. The contrast between the supreme confidence of the Normalian and the difference of the clerk from the court trust is striking, but of course would not surprise a sociologist. Weil spent 2 years in Aligarh, during which he made many friends. He had a good measure of the general poor quality of mathematics in the country, but was pleasantly surprised to come across some talented young people of promise. He recruited one of them, T. Vijayaraghavan, a student of Hardy, to the vacant post in the department. This despite the fact that Vijayaraghavan lacked certain formal qualifications required for the job. T. Vijayaraghavan was a student of Hardy. Well, the two struck up a lasting friendship. Apart from their common interest in mathematics, Vijayaraghavan, with his scholarship in Tamil and Sanskrit, could cater to Weil's interest in Indian culture. Weil also came to know other Indian mathematicians like Kosambi and Chowla, and they too, no doubt, benefited from contacts with him. However, Weil's mathematics at the time in itself had not much of an influence on Indian mathematics during his stay in Aligarh. His later work done in France and the US, however, was have an enormous impact on Indian mathematics. A lot of very interesting and deep mathematics which came out of the Tata Institute for Fundamental Research in the 60s have their origin in Weil's work. After that sojourn in India, Weil paid one brief visit to India in 1968 to participate in a conference held at TIFR, Bombay, Tata Institute for Fundamental Research, Bombay. He was, however, quite fond of India. He published a very influential paper in the Journal of the Indian Mathematical Society in 1960, something about classification of simple groups. In that paper, he misused the thanks to editors for the inordinate delay in its publication. Vijayaraghavan was 4 years senior to Weil in age. He did well enough in school, but at college his performance was not very good. He had become seriously interested in mathematics and found the curricular material unexciting. Thanks to Anada Rau, who could recognize talent that the examination system could not, he could secure admission to the BA Honours class in the university at Westminster College. He sent Hardy some of his researches and in 1925 went to Oxford to work with him. Vijayaraghavan was a fine mind and he was soon publishing excellent papers in analysis and related areas. Vijayaraghavan worked on what are known as Tauberian theorems and produced work of truly high quality. We saw Vijayaraghavan numbers, figure number 3 has also uniqueness questions about Fourier series. N Prasad was born in 1899 in Mukhopadhyayas, Gona, in Azamgarh district of Uttar Pradesh. So that's close to Allahabad now. N Prasad had his early education in his hometown, Mukhopadhyayas, Gona, and Allahabad. He graduated from Patna College, Patna, with a uniformly brilliant record. While studying for his MSc degree at Madras University, B. N. Prasad came into close contact with Ganesh Prasad, who inspired him to take research in pure mathematics. In 1921, he was appointed assistant professor at BHU, Banaras Hindu University, joined Allahabad University in 1924 as lecturer in mathematics. In 1929, he went on a study leave to Great Britain. After a short stint in Edinburgh, he moved to Liverpool to work with E.C. Tishmash. He then moved to Paris, where he wrote a dissertation under the direction of Madras and obtained a TSc degree. The thesis earned him high praise from the examiners, which include Emile Borel. He returned to Allahabad in 1932 and worked there till 1966. The university unfortunately did not respond to his superior achievements. He was made professor only in 1960. Despite that, he did not look for greener pastures. Practically all of Prasad's work in summability. Unfortunately, he did not in later years encourage his students to move away from that area. N Prasad worked mostly at the University of Allahabad. He was a major contributor to summability theory. Sri Vikrampati, one of his students, also published very interesting results in the area. There you see Professor Prasad. He, unlike Anada Rau, he was unable to get his students to work in areas outside summability, which was, as I said, fast losing focus in the mathematical community. In the early 60s, B. N. Prasad successfully persuaded Sri Giridhar Mehta, chair of the B.S. Mehta Trust, Calcutta, to start the Research Institute of Mathematics bearing the Mehta name. Unfortunately, he did not live to see the government of India step in to collaborate with the Mehta family in funding the institute in 1975. The institute was renamed as the Harishchandra Research Institute in 1993 with the gracious consent of the Mehta family. It's one of the important mathematical centers today in India. He had early education in Lahore, graduating from Government College, Lahore. In 1929, Gopal Singh accompanied his son to Cambridge, where Sarvadavan's was to pursue. For young Chowla, the joy of entering the hallowed precincts of Cambridge was marked by the sudden death of his father on his way back to India. Despite this beginning, his doctoral speech the same year and joined St. Stephen's College as a professor. There he met and married a student, Himani Mazumdar, who till her death in 1970 was to take good care for practical matters. At Government College, Lahore. He fled Lahore with his family in 1997 and after a short stay in Delhi, went to the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton as a visiting member. He was never to return to India. In 1949, he accepted the professorship at the University of Kansas at Lawrence. In 1952, he moved to Boulder, Colorado, and finally to Pennsylvania State University, from where he retired in 1976. He continued to be mathematically active, spending several years in Princeton, and later at Lawrence, where he collaborated with the former student Mary Couch. Once again, except for his early years, most of Chowla's work was done in the US. He died in 1905. Chowla was an outstanding number theorist. He proved results covering diverse aspects of number theory. Even to state them, one needs a lot of background information. I will say just one of them, though. Euler introduced the notion of a convenient number. A whole number n is a convenient number if the following holds. Any prime p, which is uniquely of the form x squared plus ny squared with xy and n, is a prime. Any number p, which is uniquely of this form, is necessarily a prime. The emphasis on the uniqueness. Euler also listed 65 convenient numbers, and to date, no further convenient numbers have been found. Chowla proved the following beautiful result. The set of convenient numbers is finite. Just to give a little flavor. So Chowla's, this is by no means Chowla's greatest piece of work. There are lots of many other interesting things he has done. Another major figure in Indian mathematics I want to talk about is Meenakshi Sundaram. I will refer to him as Meenakshi, as he was called by his friends. He was born in Thrissur, Kerala in 1913. He had his early education in Madras and took his BA Honours degree from Laila College, Madras. He became a research scholar at Madras University under Anada Rau. This naturally led him to work on Tauberian theorems, and he produced work of very high quality in that area. However, in 1937-38, he came under the influence of Reverend Father Racine, who had just joined his alma mater, Laila College, as a teacher. I will say more about Meenakshi presently, but we'll take time out to speak about Reverend Father Racine, a Frenchman whose contribution to mathematics in India is extraordinary. Reverend Father Racine was born at Thomesh, Charente, in France in 1897. He enlisted for active service in the First World War in 1916 and was demobilized 3 years later after an ankle injury that left him a limp for the rest of his life. He then entered the Jesuit order and was ordained a priest in 1929. He spent 4 years studying mathematics in Paris and obtained a doctorate in 1934. He was sent to India to work at St. Joseph's College, Chapel. He moved to Laila College, Madras in 1939 and stayed there to his death in 1976, 9 years after his retirement in 1967. Father Racine had worked with Elikatta and Adamar, both legendary figures. He counted Andrever and Ari Katta, another famous mathematician, and Elikatta's son, among his friends. With his background, Racine actually had an excellent perspective on mathematics, which he brought to India with him. He began weaning some of the Indian mathematicians away from the traditional Cambridge-inspired areas. Meenakshi was his first big success. And there was a galaxy of brilliant students to follow. The main names, K.G. Ramanathan, C.S. Deshadri, M.S. Narasimhan, Raghunathan, C.P. Ramanujan. Those are some of the names. Father Racine was apparently not an ecstatic speaker. Students found his classroom lectures difficult to follow, and his French accent made things worse. It was, however, outside the classroom that his influence was decisive. He was remarkably good at spotting talent and then encouraging it. Mathematical activity was not Father Racine's sole preoccupation. He was a spiritual advisor for the Catholic laity around him. The French government conferred on him the coveted Legion d'Honneur in 1962. In all of the 42 years he spent in India, he made only 2 trips to France, yet he remained very much a Frenchman. But there can be little doubt that he loved India. I was not privileged to be a student, but remember with pleasure the one long and informal meeting I had with him in the company of my teacher, M.S. Narasimhan. Father Racine was an excellent example, by no means unique, of the coexistence of the cassette with a lively disposition. There you have Father Racine. I don't know, this photograph was dated back to the 1950s. Let me get back to Meenakshi Sundaram. As I said, Meenakshi, under the influence of Father Racine, moved away from sobriety, though he retained a love for the subject at the end of his life. He moved into more modern areas. He turned his attention to differential equations under the influence of Racine. He took his DSc degree of Madras University in 1940 with a thesis on nonlinear parabolic differential equations. He then found himself hopelessly stranded without a job. Father Racine helped him earn some money by arranging for him to coach a few students. He was appointed lecturer in the Department of Mathematical Physics of Andhra University in Voltaire. He was arguably the most gifted mathematician of his generation. His work on the eigenvalues of the Laplacian on compact Riemannian manifolds was of the highest quality and had a lasting impact. His best work, some of it in collaboration with a Swede, Weil, who was carried out to Princeton at the Institute for Advanced Study during 1946-48. The Princeton visit materialized thanks to the efforts of Marshall Harvey Stone, an American mathematician of the first rank who visited India in 1946. Stone was also responsible for some other Indians visiting the Institute in Princeton. The Institute has had a big role, even as Cambridge earlier, in shaping Indian mathematics in later period. Here is Meenakshi Sundaram for you. On his return to India after a 2-year stay at Princeton, Meenakshi Sundaram was appointed professor at Andhra University. In 1950, he spent a few months at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, which resulted in an excellent book, Typical Means, co-authored by Chandrasekharan. That year, he also visited Princeton again, and the next year too, he was in the US on a short visit. He made another trip to the US in 1958, and on his way back to India, he gave one of the prestigious invited half-hour addresses at the International Congress of Mathematicians at Edinburgh. At Andhra University, he had problems getting along with some colleagues. He eventually moved to the then newly formed Institute for Advanced Study in Simla. He embarked on writing a book on spectral theory, but sadly, died in 1968 without completing it. I now describe the theorem of Meenakshi Sundaram and Weil. Let Mg be a Riemann manifold. M is a differential manifold and G is Riemann in metric on it. Let Fm denote the space of same functions on M. Let delta G, subscript G, denote the Laplace operator on Fm, given by metric G. Then there is a same function HGTXY, known as the heat kernel, on R plus cross M cross M. This will be R plus here, first two reals, cross M, such that d by dt minus delta x Hg, this as a distribution tends to the diagonal distribution of M cross M as t tends to 0. Moreover, HGTXY admits an asymptotic expansion t power minus n by 2 summation 0 less than r infinity t power r xgr xy as t tends to infinity, where xgr are infinity functions on M cross M. Further, if G prime are two Riemann matrix on M, such that G equals G prime on an open subset U of M, then the terms of the asymptotic expansion of Hg and Hg prime are the same on the open set U cross U. This is the theorem. Basically, he constructed what we know, what is called the heat kernel for the Laplacian on a Riemann manifold. And it's a fairly simple generalization to carry this over to elliptic operators and vector bundles, second order elliptic operators and vector bundles. So, some of stuff Meenakshi Sundaram was doing. And by the way, this asymptotic for the heat equations will play an important role in a proof of the Atiyah-Singer index theorem proposed by Singer using the heat equation. The next person I'm going to talk about is Chandrasekharan, K. Chandrasekharan. He was born in 1920. He moved to Madras for undergraduate. He took the BA Honours degree in mathematics from Presidency College, Madras, where Anada Rau taught. He was a student of Anada Rau. He was initiated into mathematics research by Anada Rau. Marshall Stone arranged for him to visit the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton to postdoctoral work. He worked on summability of Fourier series and also in number theory, a lot of it relating to Dirichlet series. His mathematical achievements are of the first rank, but his even greater contribution in the Indian mathematics, I think, lies elsewhere. Chandrasekharan is an extraordinarily gifted organizer and administrator of science, the Bradman class in Hardy's cricketing terminology. Homi Bhabha met Chandrasekharan in Princeton in 1949 and offered him a position at the Institute for Advanced Study. He met him at the Institute for Advanced Study and offered him a position at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Bombay. There is an apocryphal story about this, but it rings true. Chandrasekharan was taking a walk with the great When they saw Bhabha walking with Einstein at a distance. Einstein in Dukawa, I think. Von Neumann asked Chandrasekharan if it is true that he was planning to move to Bombay to work at Bhabha's Institute. When Chandrasekharan responded in the affirmative, von Neumann said, "That man is as good a physicist as any, but don't let him intimidate you." It appeared that case alone that wise differences of opinion with Baba seem to have been among the causes that led him to leaving TIFR in 1965 and move to Zurich. There is another anecdote about Casey, of which I have first-hand knowledge, which I know firsthand. During my Princeton visit in 1966-67, I once accompanied a friend to a clothing shop there. My friend ordered a suit for himself, while I acquired a scarf, which cost me $16. In 1966, mind you. The shopkeeper asked us if we knew Dr. von Neumann, and we said if we knew of him. Then he asked us if we knew Dr. Chandrasekharan, and we told him, yes, indeed, that we knew him. At which point he said, they are the only two gentlemen from that institute who knew how to dress. In the decade and a half that Casey transformed the printing school there into a center of excellence respected all the world over. Chandrasekharan initiated a very successful program of recruitment and training of research scholars at TIFR. The program continues to this day along the same lines that he set down. He was uncompromising in insisting on high standards. In his Princeton days, he became acquainted with many of the leading mathematicians of the world and put these contacts to excellent use. Weil gifted his collection of mathematics and volumes to the TIFR thanks to Chandrasekharan. With his unusual abilities, he was able to persuade many leading mathematical figures to visit the Tata Institute and deliver courses of lectures over a period of 2 months and more to his carefully selected research scholars. Among the many distinguished men who visited the Tata Institute, 2 names stand out. Laurent Schwartz, Prince medalist, as most of you would know, and C.L. Ziegel, one of the greatest of the 20th century mathematicians. They both had tremendous influence on the way mathematics evolved at TIFR. Schwartz persuaded many of his colleagues and students to visit the Tata Institute. Research scholars were asked to write notes for the lectures given by them, by these visitors, and these lectures notes enjoyed a great reputation in the mathematical community, and they enjoy a great reputation to this day. Chandrasekharan was an excellent judge of mathematics, even in areas outside his own specialization, and responded quickly to the achievements of his wards. Equally, non-performance at the high level, he had set had no place at TIFR. Chandrasekharan managed to instill in the students at TIFR strong commitment to hard work without their losing their romantic attachment to mathematics. One important reason for his success was the freedom he gave the students to work on what they pleased. The visitors gave them exposure to different mathematical areas, many of them far removed from cases of own interest, and students were encouraged to pursue whatever caught their fancy. Reverend Father Racine, whom Chandrasekharan knew from his Madras days, and whom he held with great respect, provided him with a steady stream of talented students. Chandrasekharan was ably assisted in his endeavors by K.G. Ramanathan. A student of Racine's, Raghunathan too was in Princeton for postdoctoral work at the same time as Chandrasekharan. There he came under the influence of Emil Artin and even more Ziegel. Through him, many of at TIFR were exposed to many modern developments, among them some of Ziegel's profound work, and this is very much reflected in the work that emanated out of TIFR in the 60s and 70s. Ramanathan was also responsible during the 70s and 80s for the building of a small but highly competent group in partial differential equations, an area of great importance in applications. This group was located in the campus of the IAC in Bangalore with a view to foster interaction with that institution. Raghunathan passed away in 1992. Raghunathan was also involved in the Indian Mathematical Society and the chief editor of the Society Journal for over a decade. He was actively assisting many universities in their efforts at building good mathematical departments. There is a photograph of Raghunathan. He played a stellar role in educating students at TIFR. His own excellent work was mainly in modern algebraic number-theory. Chandrasekharan's influence went well beyond He also served as secretary for 2 terms and as president. His initiatives on this committee were numerous and valued greatly. I know of only one other person whose record of engagement with the IMU outstrips Chandrasekharan, and that is Jacob Pallis of Brazil, one of the countries participating in this. So let me take this occasion to congratulate Pallis for having outstripped Chandrasekharan. Chandrasekharan got the IMU to sponsor the International Mathematical Colloquium held every 4 years at the Tata Institute starting 1956. These meetings have been on diverse topics in mathematics, topics that are of current interest internationally and to which Indian mathematicians have contributed substantially. They have been a great success over the years, and an invitation to the meeting is considered highly prestigious. In the 50s, Chandrasekharan held the editorship of the Journal of the Indian Mathematical Society. During this period, several great papers appeared in the journal, thanks to Chandrasekharan persuading some of the great names in the field to publish there. His services extended to science in general. He was a member of the Scientific Advisory Committee to the Cabinet in the 50s. Homi Bhabha was the chair, and is believed to have drafted the science policy resolution of the Government of India. He also served on committees appointed by. He also served on a committee appointed by Jawaharlal Nehru to write a report on the 1962 debacle, the war with China. So much about Chandrasekharan. Now I move on to Harishchandra, the greatest Indian mathematician since Ramanujan. I will not say much about him for 2 reasons. All his mathematics is done in the US. Secondly, most of you would know about him, and in any case, the internet has plenty of information on him. An obituary notice for the Royal Society written by Robert Langlands is an excellent short biographical account of Harishchandra. All that I want to say here is that he almost single-handedly brought representation of Lie groups from the periphery of mathematics to center stage within a decade. Harishchandra had his undergraduate education in Allahabad and embarked on research in physics initially. However, he moved to US in 1949 and worked there till his death in 1983, and he moved to mathematics in 1950. The last and youngest of the mathematicians who cut their mathematical teeth before independence I will speak about is R.P. Bamba, who is still with us. After his undergraduate education in Government College, Lahore, he went to work at Louis Botton in Cambridge. All of his work is number 3, most specifically geometry of numbers, and built a school in number 3 there. I should mention here Hansraj Gupta, who was very influential number theorist in Punjab. Bamba was among the people influential. Professor Ramprakash Bamba. Some of the mathematics, but there was a lot more mathematics with much greater international impact that came from younger people who entered mathematics in the mid-50s or later. As I said, all the mathematics I spoke about at some length were mathematicians who cut their mathematical teeth by 1947, by the time of independence. A large number of them from TIFR, which had risen to be an important international center by the mid-60s. I will content myself with giving you some names and you can from the internet if you are not aware of their work. These had a big role in the very way in which a number of areas have evolved over the last 60 years. Contributed in the face of algebraic geometry, also contributed to algebraic geometry as well as to different geometry. We are representation theory. I mean, these are people who have made a change in the way the subject contributed to the way in which subject is evolved. Vaidyanathaswamy once again spent most of his time in the US, in India. Same is true of Raghunathan. He made his name in India, but abroad after that, he died young at the age of 13, and his contributions, I made a difference to algebraic geometry. And you all know the Nobel laureate, the Abel laureate, S.R.S. Vardhan, who was one of the major figures in probability in the 20th century. Another area where Indian contributions, Vardhan again did most of his work in abroad, while he cut his mathematical teeth with excellent work at ISI Calcutta. Another area where Indian contributions had a role in the evolution of the very subject is Lie theory. There are several younger mathematicians who have made immensely important contributions, often of quality surpassing that of those whom I have spoken of at some length. But the list is long, and I will not attempt to make one. I will mention one name though, R. Balasubramanian, who settled two important long-standing conjectures in double theory. One of which parts about Riemann zeta function, and the other related to varying problem. And I would like to end my talk.
Maybe we'll have one or two questions from the audience if you have any. Should we clear the talks? Do you have any questions? Looks like not. I think we also have overshot time. I think you all agree with me. This is a fantastic account of the emergence of mathematics in our country and the people that have contributed to this field. Let's thank Professor Raghunathan for a fantastic account. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. We appreciate it.
The scheduled time for the next session is 5:20. But we are running a bit late, so I hope in 5-10 minutes we'll meet again after
5:30.
So we'll meet again for the next session at 5:30. And thanks again to Professor Raghunathan for the